Hey there, how's it going? In 2022, Kastking announced the Kestrel Elite bait finesse fishing reel. It created quite a stir. I, for one, was excited to get it. And in November, I actually ordered that reel from AliExpress. However, it didn't show up and I got refunded eventually. But in the meantime, a lot more information came out about that reel. And there are so many things that it shares with its much cheaper brother, the Kastking Valiant Eagle 2, that it's just really hard to justify the price of $220, which is what it's selling for right now. With that being said, I wanted to share 10 reels that I would buy all day, every day, before I considered buying the Kastking Kestrel Elite. So let's start with number one. Let's say you're really into Kastking, you want the Kastking experience, and you like the design of the Kestrel Elite in general. Well, you know what? So in that case, just get the Valiant Eagle. It's really the same reel, minus the bearings in the handle. It's a carbon body, I think, instead of a magnesium body. But other than that, they're very similar. They're both overbraked. They both just don't have the performance of every other reel that I'm going to talk about today. That being said, you love Kastking, you want the Kestrel Elite experience, get the Valiant Eagle 2, buy it for 1/4 the price of the Kestrel Elite. Number two would actually be the YLT Tank. Now, I don't love this reel a ton. It performs great. It sort of looks like the Daiwa Alphas Air in a way. There's nothing wrong with it. I actually think it is designed to sort of be very similar to the Alphas Air. It performed really well, actually. I enjoyed fishing with it, but the only thing that held me back on this is the spool release. It is so loud. I mean, listen to that thing. As somebody who makes fishing videos, that just got so annoying to hear over and over and over. And I imagine if you watch my fishing videos, it probably got annoying too. So that's probably the only real knock on the YLT Tank. This typically goes in the $70 to $75 range. Now the third reel, I don't have a copy of it here. It's actually the only bait finesse reel that I've ever sold, and that was the Daiwa Alphas Air. Now there's a chance that I had a bad copy of it, but again, it didn't feel that much different than the YLT Tank. It did function better. I'm not saying that it's not as good as that, but I didn't connect with it. It felt very mechanical, very geary. But that being said, I would 100% buy it again before I spent $220 or even $150 on the Kastking. The bottom line is, if you're thinking of spending $200 plus on a reel, at least look at the Alphas Air. I think there are better options in that price range, and I'll talk about those. But the Alphas Air, I would spend a little bit more on it before I bought the Kestrel Elite. Number four is the Kingdom Micro Monster. This is a very pleasant surprise. I do think that this is very similar in design to the Tsurinoya Genius, or it could be the other way around. The Genius is very similar in design to this because I think this has been out a lot longer. But it's basically built on the Dark Wolf Ultra platform. It's got a couple different gear ratios. It's got an 8-to-1 and a 7-to-1. It's been a solid performing reel. I've had pretty much zero issues with it. Maybe the purple's not for everybody. I kind of like it. It definitely sets it apart a little bit. Number four on the top 10 reels to buy before the Kestrel Elite is the Kingdom Micro Monster. Number five, I also don't have a copy here. It's the Soloking Acura. It's very similar to the Dark Wolf Ultra or the Micro Monster, but it comes with a deeper spool, and it's also just got a little bit more traditional silver design. It's a very good performing reel, and it's, like I said, it's basically a Dark Wolf Ultra clone. Number six, trying to move fairly quick on this because if you want to learn more about these reels, most of them are reviewed on my channel. I want to give you a bunch of options that are a better option than putting your money towards the Kestrel Elite. So number six is the Tsurinoya Genius. Also an 8.1-to-1 reel. I haven't fished this one much yet, but it's basically an updated version of the Dark Wolf Ultra. I'll see if it does light weights as well as the Dark Wolf Ultra. The Dark Wolf Ultra was underbraked. That hasn't been the case with this so far. It seems like it's just a very solid performing reel. So it might be a little bit tougher to get some of those really low weight castings done on it, but we'll be working on that. But that being said, the Kestrel Elite can't do lightweights either because it's so overbraked. This 100%, and honestly, I love the dark blue color. I'm a big fan of blue, even though I don't have any on today. But it's it is a pretty beautiful reel, and it feels almost identical to the Dark Wolf Ultra because they're built on the same platform. So number 7 is the Dark Wolf Ultra. Honestly, I think this is, right now, it's probably the king of the Chinese reel market. I don't know how much longer they're going to make it. I have one of the original variants that has the spring-loaded the braking system that basically mimics the Shimano FTB system. It is underbraked. I did have to add a couple brakes to it, but that cost me like $4. And so for like $75, I could buy 3 of these for the price of one Kestrel Elite. This one has been through the ringer. I've fished it a ton, and you can see it still looks very good. It has held up nice. I've had no issues whatsoever. I actually have this one set up with mono, which I don't fish with very often, but this is going to become the travel rod, and so I don't want to have to deal with tying leaders and stuff whenever I'm just stopping along a roadside. The number 8 reel on this list is the Shimano SLX BFS. I haven't fished one yet, but it's kind of to the Shimano Curado BFS as the Valiant Eagle 2 is to the Kestrel Elite. It has a few less bearings. It doesn't perform quite on the same level as the Curado, but the SLX BFS, you can get it right now for $75 less than the Kestrel Elite, and I would buy a Shimano any day of the week, especially one that's a fairly high-performing reel, before I bought something from Kastking. It may end up in my collection at some point, but it's 100%. It's a no-brainer. Plus, you can probably get it within a few days versus, hey, I waited 2 months for mine and it never showed up. Granted, that's an exception, but it's the risk, right? And when you're buying something at a premium price, you sort of want some of the premium experience to go with it. And Shimano, you're pretty much going to get that. So speaking of the Curado, it sort of blows my mind to think of it this way, but I bought this on Amazon for less than what you can buy the Kestrel Elite for off of AliExpress right now. So I can get this in 2 or 3 days, pay $20 less than the Kestrel Elite, and it is a much better performing reel. I mean, it's just, this thing, it may not become my favorite, but I'm really curious to see how long it takes for this to be one of the 2 that I grab all the time. It's maybe not for trout, but for bass and just general all-around fishing. I'm really loving this reel so far. And then the final reel that I would buy, again, the Kestrel Elite right now is selling for $220 on AliExpress, especially knowing what I know at this point. If I was going to spend anywhere near that amount, I would probably just track down this reel. And this is the Shimano Aldebaran BFS. I'm still finding it hard to believe that there is a better reel than this out there. I haven't touched one yet. Maybe if I get into a Steez or something like that, maybe. I don't know. I mean, this thing it's borderline magical, right? And so before I spent $220 plus tax, right? Before I spent $220 on a Kestrel Elite, I would make the effort to find this. Right now, this is listing on a lot of the Japanese websites for around $250. So it's only a little bit more than what the Kestrel Elite is selling for. The problem is finding one in stock. I would buy a used one of these for $250 before I bought the Kestrel Elite. And honestly, I think the amount of time that you would wait for the Kestrel, if you look around, you go to the different groups, you check on eBay and stuff, Facebook Marketplace. I just saw one of these yesterday for $240, I think it was, and I almost bought it. That's how much I like this reel. I don't need it, but I almost bought another one just because it was such a good price. It was the XG, I have the HG. That was how I almost justified it, but I decided not to do it. I mean, I got a lot of reels. I would spend the $30 more and get potentially the best bait finesse reel out there versus getting something that wanted to be this reel, right? But they just missed the mark. I mean, they missed it on performance, they missed it on price, and quite frankly, they missed it on customer service. I would 100% get this. And here's a little tip just for my viewers. When I got this, it wasn't in stock. But what I did was I emailed both Japan Lure Shop and Digitaka, and this would probably work for a lot of the other ones. I reached out to them and said, hey, I really want to get one of these. And it was right when they were launched. I said, do you have any? Right? And the funny thing is one didn't, and actually, I was asking for a few reels. If you go back and look at that video, the Aldebaran and the Silver Creek were both reels that I was trying to get at the time. And so I asked about both of them. And what ended up happening was, I think it was Japan Lure Shop had the Silver Creek, and Digitaka had this in stock. Neither of them were listed in stock on their website. So there's a chance that there is more supply of these than what we think. It's just, you have to be willing to do just a little bit of extra work. So, little pro tip there. Send an email through their contact form asking if they have any of these. Be very specific about which one that you want. Who knows? You might get that email the next day like I did, and I ended up buying 2 reels that supposedly were unavailable. I actually got this before some people who pre-ordered from other sites, just because they had fulfilled all their pre-orders and they had 1 left. And so maybe it doesn't work all the time, but it is a trick that I will use in the future when I'm looking for something else as well. So there you go. Those are 10 reels that I would buy before the Kestrel Elite. And honestly, you could buy the Genius, the Dark Wolf Ultra, and the Micro Monster, or the Soloking. You could get all 3 of them for the price of the Kestrel Elite. Like, that would be fantastic. You might even be able to work out a deal to get all 4 of them if you throw in the Valiant Eagle. You get the right deal, things are on sale. I can't see that the Kestrel Elite is worth it. There's been very few people that I've seen leave a review to be like, oh, I absolutely love this. It's the perfect reel. The few people who have sung praises for it kind of feel like they feel obligated to do it. Obviously, I don't. I'm not necessarily loyal to any brand. I don't know if that's good or bad. Hopefully you appreciate it. But I'll just tell you that these 2 Shimanos, actually, I got a couple Daiwas too. I think, if I was really saying, well, and both of those Daiwas are a good bit more than the Kestrel Elite. They're at least in this range, if not higher. I like those too. One of them is my favorite trout reel for sure, and that's the Silver Creek. But for just an all-around reel that I would buy instead of the Kestrel Elite, I think those 10 options, all of them are a better choice. And even this one, because it's pretty much the same experience, it's just $60 instead of $220. Like, I mean, even less. I paid closer to $50 for it when it was on sale. So you might get a good deal and get it close to $50. I can't see that a few extra bearings in the handle and different body material are going to be worth it, especially when they spec out almost identically. I'm not a huge fan of Kastking at this point. Their products have not impressed me. All these other ones have. With that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.